Friday, August 23rd, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So it's just gone past 9 p.m. London time. The stock market closed in the US. Big drop for the stock market related to trade dispute, trade war between China and the US. But more importantly, we had a Jackson Hole symposium of central bankers held by the Kansas City Fed. Everyone was waiting to listen to Jay Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve. But I think the most interesting speech was by Mark Carney, former Goldman Sachs employee, former head of the Canadian Central Bank, and current governor of the Bank of England. He's leaving in a few months. So he's actually been very honest. And is he basically warned the world that we're going to see a reset of the monetary system? It seems very much so that he has. And Zero Hedge has covered this story. It's just come out a while ago. And I thought it was important to cover it. So I'll read through it. And after that, I'll look at what the markets did. And the story is, in unprecedented, shocking proposal, BOE's Mark Carney urges replacing dollar with Libra-like reserve currency. Doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to be a cryptocurrency. Libra, of course, is the currency that Facebook is looking to launch. But I've seen that a lot of people, partners with Facebook working on Libra, are actually moving away from it because of regulatory problems. But let's go through the article and then I'll give you my opinion on what currency they could use to reset the system. Why do they need to reset the system? Well, because central bankers are losing complete control of the system. I saw another article today. It's an editorial in the FT. I read it just about an hour ago by Adair Turner. Adair Turner, he was former head of the FSA in the UK, which is the equivalent of the SEC. So pretty, how can I say, well-connected guy, pretty high up in the scheme of things. And he even wrote today, central banks have lost much of their clout. He says, the truth is that acting alone, central bankers are no longer that important. So basically he's saying they've done so much already, like QE, zero rates, negative rates, and nothing has worked. He's right. Central bankers are not that important anymore. So with what Mark Carney says, it looks more and more that we could be moving to, yes, some kind of reset of the current monetary system. What the replacement will be is not very clear. So let's go through this article. It says, after Jerome Powell's neutral to slightly dovish but mostly boring speech on Friday morning, investors could be forgiven for suspecting that this year's Fed-sponsored gathering in Jackson Hole might be disappointingly dull, especially with all that's going on in Trump's Twitter feed and escalating trade war and escalating geopolitical unrest. Then along came former Goldman banker and current outgoing BOE governor Mark Carney, who in his lunchtime address laid out a shocking, radical proposal, perhaps the most stunning thing to ever be unveiled at Jackson Hole, urging to replace the US dollar with a Libra-like reserve currency in a dramatic revamp of the global monetary, financial, and economic order. Hence, reset, right? And it goes on to say, while it was unclear if Carney was focusing on Libra as the new reserve currency or simply was hoping to find something against which the dollar could be devalued, the proposal is clearly shocking as it suggests that the central bank quiet acceptance of cryptocurrency, especially in Japan, has been what many have speculated all along, a currency against which fiat money can be devalued in hopes of sparking fiat hyperinflation that inflates away record amounts of fiat debt. Well, not only cryptocurrencies, but historically, the currency that all fiat currencies can debase against and create inflation or hyperinflation is gold or precious metals, gold and silver, right? Goes on to say, of course, such a new system would bring about the end of U.S. hegemony and effectively end the dollar-based global financial system, dramatically scaling back the U.S.'s influence in the global economy and making rising powers like China and Russia critical players in an increasingly multipolar world, especially if they propose a gold-backed dollar alternative to the world. That this would quickly emerge as a new reserve currency together with whatever stable coin crypto central bankers deign to be the dollar's replacement, goes without saying. Carney's proposal comes just a few months before he's due to step down from his position leading the Bank of England. We note that because it is a well-known fact that central bankers tend to speak the truth once they have quit their position of power and influence. Yet it is quite shocking for Carney to do so while still in office. The bottom line, Carney sounded like nothing less than an Austrian school economist who admits that the existing neoliberal Keynesian system has collapsed. So maybe he's been listening to Maneco 64. Who knows? Maybe he has. Speaking to fellow policymakers and academics at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, he said that in the short term, central bankers must deal with the situation as it is. But he also warned that blithe acceptance of the status quo is misguided and dramatic steps will ultimately be needed. It's what he said next that was stunning. So this is what he said, and I quote, "In the long term, we need to change the game," Carney said. "When change comes, it shouldn't be to swap one currency hegemon for another." So Zero Hedge continued. It says, "This is where, if Carney indeed speaks for his central banking peers, one can say game over for the fiat system, which now even establishment members admit will need to devalue against something outside of the fiat system, such as gold, as PIMCO's Harley Bassman suggested back in 2016, or cryptocurrency stablecoins like Libra." Well, to be honest, I think cryptocurrencies have a future and they will compete with gold and silver, but I think there's gold is really the ultimate, how can I say, asset, monetary asset that the current system can be devalued against. And it makes sense looking at all the central banks that have been buying gold in the last few years, like China and Russia. Maybe they know this is coming. Don't forget, the Russian and the Chinese central bankers, they meet at the BIS as well with the major central banks of the West. There has hardly been a more appropriate time for such a proposal. Trade wars and now the threat of currency wars are appending multilateral cooperation. Central bankers are trapped in a low interest rate world, and the threat of modern monetary theory has reared its ugly head. Yet the establishment has so far been unable to come up with its own alternative to combat MMT. So this is another quote by Carney. "The combination of heightened economic policy uncertainty, outright protectionism, and concern that further negative shocks could not be adequately offset because of limited policy space is exacerbating the disinflationary bias in the global economy," Carney said. What then must be done? Well, this is what Zero Hedge says. Well, the creation of a virtual non-fiat currency against which all other central bank backed fiat currencies could be devalued. It's certainly one solution. But if the notion that the economic establishment which Carney represents might someday accept these ideas sounds like a fantasy, that's because it is. Which means that the only practical alternative is a central bank endorsed cryptocurrency, or wait for it, gold. So a gold-backed cryptocurrency, who knows, that's possible. I wouldn't really call it a cryptocurrency because it wouldn't be decentralized, but it would be a digital world currency. In light of this shocking capitulation by a member of the central bank establishment, we leave you with some levity, as the alternative is simply dire. And what happens next as the fiat world unwinds or devalues against some non-fiat construct will be very unpleasant for all those who are unprepared and had believed that central bankers actually know what they're doing. Luckily, none of our readers fall into that category, and hopefully none of my viewers fall into that category, because I've been a critic of the central bankers and the central banks and their monetary system for the last 3.5, 4 years. In my videos, I've been a critic of it for many years before that as well, privately and with colleagues and family and friends. So there you go. Pretty interesting times. So what about the markets? Yeah, we had a big down day in the stock market. The Dow closed down, let's have a look here, 623 points. It did close off the lows, about 120 points off the lows, finished down 2.37%. S&P closed at 2847, down about 2.6%. So not a great day for the stock market. Technical picture not looking great. Gold and silver did very well. Gold made a high of 1530 after trading as low as 1493 this morning. So we closed the week very well here, around 1528. Right now it's trading at 1527. Silver still hasn't been able to break through that 1750 level. That's been the high today. Right now we're at 1741. We're getting closer and closer to a reset of the system. And I have to say, gold will be a very important part of this reset. Even if it's not only gold, if they use some kind of construct, central banker construct, they will have to consider gold, because it's the only neutral currency. It's not a national currency, and it's one that's had the track record of thousands of years, and they will be able to devalue all other currencies, dollar included, versus gold. Yes, there will be room for cryptocurrencies as well. Well, in a free market, there's room for any currency that shows promise, as long as it doesn't need to have a government backing, or the law back it, or legal tender law. Anything that acts as a currency and doesn't need legal tender support is a free market currency. So very interesting comments by Mark Carney. Does this mean that's going to happen overnight? No, this could take a year, 2 or 3, or even more, but we know the way it's going. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you all a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.